have a problem. Some of you are laughing. No, I'm serious. I am obsessed with education. It's a good thing? Okay. I seriously cannot look at anything without somehow connecting it back to education. I feel like I've decoded the Matrix or something. It's really cool. I cannot look at any news story, any current event, any situation or circumstance without somehow tying it back to education. Now, I'm fully aware that others may not look at it that way, and I'd like to tell you that you're wrong. I spend a lot of time in education circles, working with teachers, serving on panels, attending workshops, boards, and conferences, and without fail, the conversation around education is super limited. When we talk about it, we think of principals, teachers, and students, textbooks, curriculum, and brick and mortar schools. Our concept of education has become so siloed, so narrow and rigid that it blinds us to the much larger picture. I want to challenge us to change the way that we talk about education, to stop viewing it as this one singular thing, some isolated entity, and to start seeing it as embedded in the very foundation of everything. It sounds pretty ambitious, right? Maybe a little hyperbolic, I know. But before you write me off or call me crazy, just consider this for a moment. Close your eyes if you will, and imagine a society or world that failed to provide a sound, basic education to all of its citizens. What would it look like? What would the rate of crime be in this place? Given all the opportunities that being educated makes available, what sort of options or life chances would the average citizen have? How would that impact the standard of living or even public safety? What sort of behaviors would be manifested without access to knowledge acquisition and learning? And what about the economy of this place? What sort of jobs would be available? Skilled or unskilled? High wage or low wage? And what would that do to the rate of poverty? Would it contribute to or offset social inequality? And how about governance? Too soon to talk about politics? What sort of laws would we enact? What kind of leaders would we elect? If something was unpopular or even untrue, how easily could people be persuaded to be in favor of it? Would critical thinking and questioning be encouraged? Would logic and reason be the norm? I wonder what sort of ideas would dominate the populace about people we see as different. What sort of fears and stereotypes we'd have about poor people, about immigrants, about women, about black and brown people, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer folk. I wonder in this society if knowledge or material wealth would be the greater commodity. Lastly, I want you to ask yourself, what kind of future does this place have? Is it bright and brimming with possibilities? Or is it dismal and almost certain to collapse on top of itself? Now, open your eyes and ask yourself if this place looks familiar. I pose these questions because, as I said, I believe that every social problem we can think of is rooted either directly or indirectly in access to education or the lack thereof. Our inability or ability to provide that has real human costs and social consequences, whether we know it or not. Most recently, as part of an interview, I was asked why I would tell people who don't work for or have children in the school system to be concerned about education. And to be honest, my answer wasn't very complex. I said it indisputably impacts everything else. The ripple effect of that sector is innumerable and can't fully be captured. It's the reason that I say education is not the only thing, it is everything, because everything hinges on it. Everything hangs in the balance. Now, I don't subscribe to magic bullet theories, even though it sounds that way. But if I did, I mean, clearly it had to be education, right? And I want to be clear here in saying that when I'm talking about education, I'm not necessarily speaking about in a formal sense, like going to school and so forth, although I do fully endorse that. But I'm speaking more broadly about the skills that lead to full human development. I'm talking about creativity. I'm talking about innovation. I'm talking about empathy, problem solving, critical thought, asking big questions and argumentation and so on. Now, in that sense, education really is the antidote for everything plaguing our society. It is the cure for structural inequality. It is the cure for institutional racism, for sexism, for bigotry, for xenophobia, for religious intolerance, for partisan bickering, even terminal illness. Now think about that. It's the sector, the bedrock of every other sector, and the underground aquifer that feeds every stream of society. Now, I recognize that sounds very pie in the sky, but I promise you I'm not making this stuff up, right, or just speaking platitudes. I can tell you as a former high school teacher, I have seen it change the lives of my students. But I can also tell you that after surveying the human population and human history, there are certain themes that emerge, certain conclusions that can be drawn, one of which is that societies don't just magically become prosperous. No offense to our magician friend at the beginning of the talk. That's not how it works. The civilizations that we hold in high regard and try to model ourselves after, they didn't just luck up on something. There are certain ingredients that made that thing happen. A recipe for success, if you will. It's the reason that I told my students that you don't become educated to increase your standard of living. You do it to increase your standard of being. And there's a difference there. From the ancient Kemetic or Egyptian mystery schools where young initiates would be taken through a rigorous program of education that we would now call the liberal arts, and a various assortment of courses and disciplines designed to liberate the soul of that individual. To ancient Greece at the dawn of democratic thought in Athens, where the notion of democracy was based on the idea that by exposing the average citizen to a broad base of knowledge and culture, that you were enriching that individual, making them more fit for self-government. Alan Bloom is quoted as saying that education is the movement from darkness to light. And historically, I have to say he's right. He's absolutely right, because the lack of knowledge has always been synonymous with darkness. There's a whole period of European history characterized by the cultural, economic, and intellectual decline known as the, say it with me, Dark Ages. Okay, you guys are paying attention. Conversely, knowledge acquisition has always been represented by light. This is why during the era of bright ideas about philosophy, politics, and science, it was known as the Enlightenment. You guys are with me, great. So, this has always been there. It's always been there. Knowledge has always been there because education has always gone hand in hand with human development. We can't talk about creating a more fair, a more just and peaceful society unless we place education at the center of that discussion. But that means we have to change the narrative and reorient our own understanding. Now listen, when we fail to do this, we see what happens. There are real societal implications. Most recently, an officer-involved shooting of a black man named Keith Lamont Scott took place here in Charlotte under circumstances that can only be described as questionable. Instantly, the raw anger of the city was exposed. Protesters took to the streets and were met with police and riot gear. Bottles were thrown. Tear gas canisters were shot. Properties were damaged. Cars were set ablaze. And in the end, another young man, Justin Carr, ended up losing his life unnecessarily. So many in the city were left wondering, how could this be? How could a city with such a progressive reputation be experiencing this sort of unrest? Not coincidentally, a 2014 Harvard study called Where is the Land of Opportunity ranked Charlotte dead last in social mobility out of the country's 50 largest cities. See, the truth is everybody doesn't have the same access to education. And informally, our miseducation as constituents about the experiences and the historical underpinnings of that situation helped to catalyze those events. In the end, I believe it was our ignorance, our lack of education about those issues that permitted that toxic soup to boil to the surface. Look, nationally, you don't have to look any further than this election cycle to see that we have plummeted into a virtual dark age of our own. One that is fueled by corruption, lies, feelings being placed over facts, and giving into our worst assumptions about other people. Clearly, we cannot go on this way. Ironically, the current climate has provided an education of its own, of a sort. There's a lesson in any of this stuff going on. It's that we cannot go on this way. We cannot continue to look at education as some aloof institution and being educated as some sort of ascribed credential. We need to begin to see education as the process of creating kinder, better informed human beings. A virtue pursued and promoted to ensure a more functioning society, a part of our infrastructure that makes certain that the common good is served for all. Now ask yourself this, what if we really believe that? What if we really embraced that idea and fully resourced it? You know, recently a guy came up to me at my kids' karate practice of all places. I don't know what that's about. And he said, "Hey, you're the teacher of the year guy." I was like, "Yeah." And he immediately went into his own personal story. He told me how he didn't come from much, how his prospects were bleak, and how by some stroke of good fortune, he ended up making it to college. He is now gainfully employed, married, with 2 kids, and yet he still has this lingering sense of unfulfillment. You know what he told me? He said, "I feel called to be a teacher." Obviously, I started smiling. I asked him, I said, "So why?" And he told me about some chance encounter while shopping at the grocery store and running into a group of young men while at the checkout. He said, while looking at them, he thought to himself, "That's my future over there." I'm literally looking at my future. See, the light bulb went off for him. He gets it. But I wonder about us. Do we get it? What sort of future are we going to create? You know, I opened this speech by saying that I have a problem. And that's true. But I was really kind of hoping that you had the same problem too. Maybe then we could return to the true Latin meaning of the word education and begin to draw out that which lies within all of us. Thank you.